Welcome to the Sultans of Sales podcast. I'm your host, Jamil Pendleton. Today on the show, I'm excited to welcome Lucien Blondel from Montpellier, France. And Lucien and I connected on LinkedIn. And this is one of the topics that we're actually going to discuss today is the magic of LinkedIn. But before we do that, our guest today is a medical robotics expert. He's very well versed in imaging and AI and kind of this digital transformation that we're experiencing real time. Many overlaps from Lucien and I's career in terms of just what we're interested in, what we talk about. And a lot of us, I find myself commenting on your posts and vice versa. So it's been great to engage with you over a very short period of time. And I'm grateful that we can spend time today. Lucien is the CTO of Quantum Surgical, who is a medical robotics company that is focused on treatment of liver cancer. So, Lucien, thank you very, very much for joining the Sultans of Sales podcast. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Jay. Thank you for having me on your podcast. Even if I'm not a sales guy, I'm more of an engineer, but I'm happy to be there at the Sultans of Sales, previously
Absolutely.
Sultans of Spine, right?
Yes, sir. We started out as the Sultans of Spine, and then, I think it's good to extend the lens beyond spine surgery, because I've got a lot of experience in sales before I started in this industry. How about you? What has your path been?
Yeah, I've been working in this field, surgical robotics, for 20 years. So I'm an engineer by background. I graduated engineering school back in 2001. And during this school, I did an internship, a 9 months last year internship on a project that was aiming to compete with actually the intuitive Da Vinci surgical robot. So it was a European project developing a teleoperated robot for soft tissue surgery, laparoscopic surgery, and general surgery, urology, all that those fields. And that's where I discovered this area, and I never left since. That's too exciting to look at other topics. So after I graduated, I took a gap year with my twin brother and my older sister, and we went traveling around the world. We had a project around children, and so we spent 1 year over there in Asia, Africa, and South America. And when I went back, I started to work for a very small startup that is called Medtec SA in Montpellier, south of France. And there were just 4 people in an office with this idea from the founder, Bertin Naum, to develop a surgical robot for knee, for orthopedics. Actually, at the beginning, it was for tibial osteotomy, which is not a very big market. So we quickly shifted to total knee replacement. And we developed this product. We were a very small team, actually, but in 3-4 years, we ended up with a prototype, get it CE marked and FDA cleared. So that was in 2005, 2006. And at that time, there was a guy at Zimmer looking all around the world to enabling technologies such as robotics, and he found us, and we started to discuss with this company, and senior management came to Montpellier, to Marseille, to do cadaver labs, and they found it very interesting. So we entered into discussions, and they finally bought the technology, so the IP, the assets, the prototypes, everything but the company and the people. And we helped them for a couple of years because they took over the product development, and they invested several millions into developing this product for the market. Unfortunately, it didn't went through because they had other issues at that time in the company, and the CEO change, and you know what it is when there is such a big project led by the CEO, and then the guy leaves, and then what happens. So the robot stays in the closet somewhere, and everybody moves on, and that's life, and that's okay. And so we started again from scratch, and we went back to an area that we knew already, which is cranial neurosurgery, and we developed the Rosa, a brain robot that is intended to help neurosurgeon to either place biopsy needles or electrodes deep inside the brain based on a pre-surgical planning on a CT and MR images. And that's very delicate surgeries. You have to be very accurate. When you do a deep brain stimulation, like with a Medtronic system, you have to be very accurate because otherwise the stimulation is not efficient, or the recording of the epileptic seizure is not efficient. So accuracy is really paramount for this kind of procedures. So what we wanted to do is to really enable any kind of surgeon, neurosurgeon, to start a program on epilepsy because of that robot that helps, place 10 to 15 electrodes into the brain with a very complex planning. So same steps, a couple of years, actually 2 years after we reached the CE mark and FDA clearance, we put the system on the market and we tried to commercialize the device on our own, locally in France, and then in neighboring countries, and then in the US, China, stuff like that. Then I took another gap year. I went traveling around Asia because I'm a big fan of Asian culture and all those different countries that are very, very much different from our Western society. So I took this gap year. I came back. I went to visit a friend in San Francisco, and he told me, "Hey, you should be on LinkedIn." So I was okay. Let's do this LinkedIn story.
When was this, Lucien? Sorry to interrupt. When was that? What year?
Yeah, that was in 2010, maybe 2011. I started that, and so I just, at that time, LinkedIn was just, you put your CV basically, and you connect to people to get relation and start something like that. And I got connected with people in the Silicon Valley in surgical robotics, and they offered me an interview right there. I was in vacation. I didn't plan to go back to work, Yeah,
you're on holiday.
But I was on LinkedIn and it was starting, so I was like, okay, let's move on to the next step of my life, and let's really find what I want to do as the next career move. And so I went there and interviewed. It was not a fit with the company, but so I went back to Paris in France, and I started through relationships. I was connected to people at GE Healthcare. They have a very innovative project in interventional radiology. They were developing a really, really new system, angiography room with a mobile robotic system, specifically for hybrid OR. So that those kind of rooms where you can, at the same time, perform a surgery, conventional surgery on a breakable table, and you bring the angiography system and you do endovascular procedures. So it's a hybrid in the sense that you can do both procedures, and you can do also stage procedures where in cardiology, you can do a coronary stenting and then the surgical phase, a cabbage or stuff like that on the heart. So it's really advanced technology, and I spent there 3 amazing years. I love the company. GE is a very strong culture, like I feel Medtronic is, and great people. Really everybody's very accessible. So I learned a lot over there. I'm very curious. So I asked people a lot. I went to marketing, I went to servicing guys, I went to manufacturing, and I wanted to learn everything because I spent, 8 years on a startup trying to figure out how you do business. And then when you are in a corporate environment, everything is very structured. It's tailored for mass production, and all the processes are very rigorous. So I was very curious to learn about that. So that's what I did. And back in 2013, I was called by Bertrand Aum again, and they started this new robot for spine surgery. So there was a spine. So I went back to Medtec SA, back to startup, back to big challenges. And I led the engineering team and the clinical trial so that we can land safely on, again, CE marking, FDA clearance, so a couple of years, 2014, 2015.
Right.
And 2013, we did the IPO. We raised 20 million euros. And then the next step of this startup journey was, really when you want to address the big markets, you need a huge investment because, you need to set up the sales force, distribution, manufacturing. So we were looking for another round. in the US. And well, through different ways, we got connected with Zimmer Biomet. So they came back, new people, new business units, new business development areas, and we started talking. They quickly understood that the Rosa technology in itself, it was tailored for brain and spine, but it can be applied to many other fields. So they saw the opportunity to leverage this technology for other businesses of their own, like knee and hips, and they acquired a company in 2016. And early in 2017, with the top management of Medtec SA, we left the company. We let them do what they're good at, which is distributing and doing all the manufacturing and making sure that you can, sell hundreds of robots a year. And we started again from scratch, Quantum Surgical. And so that's another startup journey. We decided to take some time because, it was quite an eventful 15 years that we had. And we took like 6 months really to take a step back and say, okay, where is this field of therapeutic intervention surgery where robotic can really provide benefits? We're not into, I have this crazy idea of a robot and then I will find where it can be used. We just said, okay, where is this field where there are unmet needs, clear unmet needs from the surgeon, from the physician, and it's where there is a complex procedure. It's hard to execute. It's operator dependent. There is a long learning curve, and then robotics, pre-surgical planning that can really help streamline this and democratize this kind of technique to touch much more patients. So we found this, and it's in liver cancer. And yes, I mean, liver cancer is a big it's a big issue. Cancer in general. There will be an increase from 18 to 30 million new cancer diagnosed each year by 2040. Today, like more than 3 million people are diagnosed with liver cancer, either primary, which is a cancer coming from the liver, or secondary, which are metastases that comes from other organs, mainly colorectal cancer. And for those people, there are not many treatments. Surgery is the gold standard, of course, and it's efficient, but very few people are eligible to surgery because they are old people with comorbidities. And so the other are left with not many options, and percutaneous ablation is one option. And basically, just for the listeners, it's just the interventional radiologist will insert a needle through the skin towards the tumor that is inside the liver, and it will activate some kind of energy. So it's either heat or cold, radiofrequency, microwave, or cryo. And this energy will just destroy the tumor, and you just remove the needle and you're good to go. So it will be an outpatient procedure. So it's very quick, at very lot of benefits for the patient, but it's hard to do. It's very hard to do because everything is moving in the abdomen. So that's where you need to have advanced technology to help you define where you want to go, to locate where is the patient, and to guide you to execute what you plan, and then to assess what's the result and say, okay, I've burned enough and I can finish the procedure, or there is still a little bit of the tumor that's not been covered, and I just need to implant another needle.
Fascinating.
Was a bit long, but
no,
I thought
listen, it's fascinating, and it feels like that you're very curious, as am I. We've both traveled the globe, and I think that stems from just a thirst for knowledge and for trying new things and seeing how other people are doing things. And I love what you said about when you were at GE and just asking different questions, from different business parts of the business. Why do you, I consider that is a very good thing, that a lot of folks are so tunnel vision into their world that they don't stop to understand, even if, right, across different functions of a business unit or an entire corporation, it's so important to understand those other people. So for example, you're an engineer. I'm a sales guy. I think some of the best relationships that I've had in my career have been with the people that are making the products that I get to sell, with the engineers. So how do you see the engineer sales relationship today, right? And then where do you want it to go? Maybe at Quantum, or for the entire scope of medical technology robotics?
Yeah, that's a good question. First, I would say that engineers and sales, they are like two different cultures. So it's like when you travel away abroad, and you have to adjust, you have to listen to, you have to understand that every party has its own challenges, its own constraints, and we live in different worlds. And that's what I like about sales. They brought a lot of energy, a lot of fun, but at the same time, they don't have the same. You have a lot of pressure on closing the deal, and we have a lot of pressure on doing things right, in the right order, with a very organized way. And sometimes those two constraints don't perfectly align. But where we can meet is on the customer, and that's where. That's where we have to work between engineers and sales, and it comes during the pre-sale process. For capital equipment, it's different than for. I'm talking about capital equipment, complex system,
Yes, sir.
robotic device, not commodities. Such a big system, you have to some way customize it to the customer, and you have to make sure that this big piece of equipment is going to fit into the OR in general. What are they using as implants? What kind of imaging system they have? How big is the room? Where do I plug the system? All that stuff that you have to organize, because you put something into the operating room that is going to, people will have to live with that. So you have to adjust, and you have to make sure that everything will work well. So
That's right.
Characterizing, the environment of the user and the needs of the user are one very important expectation from engineers to sales, and from sales to engineers. And other thing is, I love to get customers' feedbacks, and salespeople. They're on the field, and they have this firsthand, and
Right.
and they are not that much used to share that knowledge in an organized way, but through discussion and passion, then we can get this information, and in return we can sometime meet the sales need, which is, hey, this guy, he want to buy, but he's using this ablation system that is not compatible. Right. What can you do? Can you do it for tomorrow? Of course, it's a bit more complex than that, and it takes time.
And it's so well said. And I think that one of the secrets, it's not really a secret, but one of the very simplistic way of looking at how to convert a surgeon to using your new technology is very simple. It's teaching them something that will improve their workflow or their patient outcomes. And that's something that it's difficult to do. And I think that you've stated the engineering piece of the new technology. You have to follow the regimented process, because that's critical in terms of safety and efficacy and reproducibility, right? And you mentioned earlier, robotics is about accuracy. I would agree. I would also say it's precision. It's repeated accuracy and reliable. precision and accuracy, right? And
Well,
I love what you said: define, locate, guide, and assess. And I wrote those down because that's really everything. And I'd love your perspective on robotics, because it's not just the ability to preoperatively plan. It's not just the precision and the accuracy of the instrumentation or the arms or whatever that robotic piece is, the guidance, right? The visualization, but it's then the passive data that can come from that. And it's knowing that you've done what you came to do as a surgeon, from a surgeon's eyes, in that moment, intraoperatively, and being able to assess, Lucien, that they're where they need to be or that they need to continue. And that's difficult to do without robotics and navigation and these enabling technologies. It's almost impossible.
no, it's not impossible, but it requires a high skill set, and from the surgeon, through experience. Then you have top surgeons. Then they're as good as anyone with a robot, but it takes a lot of time, and you can go that far. Robotics can, for this top surgeon, it can bring them further, treat more complex cases, or treat complex cases with more confidence. Being less anxious about what's going to happen. Is there going to be a complication during the surgery? So it's well, that's my point of view. But coming back to robotics and accuracy and that stuff, I think, yeah, I mean, there are those three phases you have to help before, during, and after the surgery. So that, I mean, that's for every market segment, I would say, in surgery. And then depending on the application, then you will have different needs. Accuracy, that's for cranial neurosurgery. Spine also, you want to have that. But there are other fields where, let's say the teleoperated robot for soft tissue, what they want is dexterity, they want enhanced vision, they want that kind of stuff. And so everybody tends to think about surgical robotics like it's a one market, right? It's like one car. But no, I mean, you have even for cars, you have a BMW, great car, and I have a more spacious a car to have my 3 kids in the back, and being able to travel with my kids. And so everybody has different needs, and that's the same in surgery. There are so many different applications that they are common needs on the pre-planning, guidance, and assessment.
Yes.
And then there are very specificities to each field.
That's absolutely true. And I think, thank you for the correction. It's not impossible to do surgery without enabling. It's just difficult to do it reproducibly and to take on some of those tough pathologies, which might challenge, right, their training in their hands. You might need something to assist, right? We're in the robotic assisted surgery game, at least in spine and neurosurgery.
Yep.
It's not, when I talk to my friends, and this was great because this is a perfect segue to that question that we were talking about off mic. When I talk to my friends about robotic surgery, they're thinking like Terminator 2, robotics are taking over the world, right? That humans have no control. Can you explain robotics? Like take a much more layman's approach to explaining robotic surgery to someone that maybe doesn't understand it to your degree?
Yeah, okay, I'll try at least.
It's tough sometimes.
Well, I mean, you can have a very broad definition, robotic surgery being any kind of device with a piece of a robotic arm that helps a surgeon to do a task. And then that it encompasses a lot of different stuff. It can be a robotic arm that is positioning a high intensity focused ultrasound. So it's HIFU. It's for focal treatment, like of prostate cancer or skin cancer or whatever. And the robotic arm is just positioning an end effector. So there is also a robotic device in surgical microscopes. So there is now this next generation of digital microscopy, and we're coming to see robots over there so that they can have 2 cameras instead of those big optics, and everything is digitized and it's robotized. So it's helping to move an end effector. So that's one way of doing medical robotics. Then there is the big portion of surgical robotics, which are the teleoperated robots, where you have in soft tissue surgery, you transition from open to laparoscopic surgery when you have to enter 2-3 instruments and an endoscope through ports, so small incision, and the robot helps you to have better dexterity. So it's a surgeon console and a robotic cart with 3 arms that are inserted with instruments into the body, and it's a teleoperated system, even though the guy is just 2 meters away from the robot. It's teleoperated, and that's one way to do this. And then, as you said, in orthopedic, spine, cranial, neuro, a lot of application, there are all those robotic assistant where the robot is collaborating with the surgeon to help him do the exact gesture he wants to do based on the planning is done. So it's like milling the bone, or it's like drilling into the pedicle, or it's like placing an interbody cage or whatever. And,
Right.
and that's a different concept, and that's the concept we've been working on for 20 years. We're not into teleoperated surgical robots, even though
awesome.
we started the first version of the Bridget robot was a teleoperated milling robot for our knee replacement, but we got away from this.
It's so fascinating. Thank you so much for the knowledge on robotics. I'm grateful for that, and hopefully the audience, whoever that is, surgeons, sales reps, engineers, people that are interested in medical technology and specifically robotics, they've gotten something of value from you, Lucien. So I appreciate that. We're going to pivot. So we're going to stop and now move into a different digital world of social media, specifically LinkedIn. And again, I said at the beginning of the show, and this will probably be maybe a phase 2 to the show when we launch our episode. That's how we found one another. That's why we're here today. It's becoming more and more kind of a common place to socialize, to network, to connect, to share ideas. It's incredible. And, I'm using it in multiple different ways. You mentioned 2011. Yeah, LinkedIn for me used to be just a live resume and a place to maybe look for jobs.
Sure.
And while I still think it is, I think it's much different today, and it's much more powerful today because the ability for you to have, and I both, we have 5,000 plus followers, right? So that's incredible. Like, I don't know 5,000 people, and I probably won't meet a large percentage of those people, but you can still gain, share, right? Grow from them. That's my take. Enough about me. What are you excited about LinkedIn? Let's just talk about this, what's happening, because it's super fun.
So, let's start with the beginning, right? I don't have any big game plan with LinkedIn. It's just a very simple day. It was in end of April. I just, realized that I reached this 3,000 followers milestone. I've never done anything to grow my network on LinkedIn. I'm just accepting incoming requests, and so right. I reached this 3,000. I'm say, hey, that's something. And I'm at the same day, I see a surgical robotics company that I really like, that is doing a great job, and they're celebrating their first 1,000 followers. And I'm like, there must be something, if a company doing such great product is happy to have 1,000 and then I have 3,000, what should I do with that? I have to do something with that. So I thought about it, and I get a connection request from someone who knew me, and who said, hey, he told me I should connect with you because I am interested in surgical robotics, and you're giving some insight. So I thought we should connect. So that was my purpose, just
Great.
What I've done for 20 years in my companies, and sharing, information about are the emerging technologies, first in robotics, but I'm also into imaging with my years at GE, and robotics and imaging is very close together. And right now, AI is also the third part of this,
Yes.
triangle: robotics, imaging, and AI. So I'm trying to share also on this topic, and the why is that I'm convinced that it's very exciting first, and that it will somehow someday someone will have an idea coming out of this, and start a new project, and maybe a new company, a startup, and they will create a medical device, and at the end of the day the medical device will provide benefit to the patient. And the patient is you, is me, is neighbors, is your coworkers, is your family,
Yes.
is your friends, is everybody. So that's where it started, like 4 months ago, and I started from there. Just I will
Amazing.
start to share, and I will see along the way what's going to happen, and I start connecting to people, and I started to learn from people, and I started to get inspired by people, and try to give back to the community. So this is something I hear a lot from American people, and I made it my own motto. Give back to the community, and the medical device space is a community in itself, and I've been working in there for 20 years, so it's time for me to somehow give back to the people who are entering this community and who are fresh new. They don't know much, and it will accelerate their ramp up in the knowledge, and for every companies, and at the end for the patient.
That's right. We talked about that off mic. The reason why I do what I do, and I've been asked this question, why are you sharing things openly that could potentially help competition? It's a valid question. But my answer is because the patient deserves it, because we all can improve. I can improve every day. Lucien, respectfully, you can improve every day with
Sure.
20 years experience, right? And I've got 13 in this space, 18 in sales. We can absolutely help lift everyone, right? For the benefit of surgery and of the patient. And then I kind of have a separate also piece that it's no secret, but I'm here to retain and recruit top talent. That's my job. It's a big part of my job, my new role. And when I got this job 6 months ago, I thought, how am I going to do that? I don't have a team. It's just one guy. I'm just one person. And I thought, LinkedIn. I got a hunch. I'm going to start posting. I'm going to start connecting and hopefully inspiring and motivating and building, right? And it's happening. We're here today. I'm learning from a 20-year medical technology robotics expert, a chief technology officer, right? And we're having, it's morning for me, afternoon for you, but the digital connection allows us to have a conversation. And although we're not part of the same company, we can still educate, inspire, right? Motivate, whatever it is. And the fascinating thing for me about the podcast, Lucien, is being able to harmonize your experiences, a little bit of mine, and share that with whoever ends up watching and listening to this. And that's just what's so neat about the whole digital transformation for me. And LinkedIn is, I think it's such an untapped resource.
Yeah, I mean,
now
on my side, I've seen like a shift in the industry. I mean, like 10, 15 years ago, people were not open to share, it, and it was not digital. So you encounter people at events, shows, WOS, whatever, and then everyone is at its booth, and staring at each other, and what they're doing, what I'm doing, and the way I see it on LinkedIn, at least, that people are sharing much more openly right now, because they see the benefit of educating each other, and if we all go towards the same direction, then everybody benefits from this, and it leverages everybody. It's for everybody's benefit. And
that's right.
It's give, and then you will get in return much more than what you've given. It's just you have to start to give.
That's right. And that's so true. I mean, Adam Grant writes one of my favorite books, Give and Take. He talks a lot about that. Givers, it's actually kind of counterintuitive if you haven't read the book. I've talked about it before, but the top percent of any ranking of any specialty, doctor, lawyer, engineer, sales rep, entrepreneur, athlete, right? It doesn't really matter. The top percentage are givers, the middle are the takers, and then the bottom percentage are also givers. So there's a really fine line about how much you give, why you do what you do, right? And I don't give because I'm expecting to get, right? I'm giving because I know it's the right thing to do and I feel compelled to do it. And to your point, you've got all this knowledge and experience, right? Mine's in a different realm, but similarly, I want to share some of that. And sometimes when I turn on this phone, typically to record, it is almost as if, Lucian, I'm giving advice to my younger self in a weird way, right? Like when I started in this industry, I was 28. I had sales experience, but no medical background, right? I was a business major. And now I'm trying to maybe raise up tomorrow's leaders and maybe inspire them to up their game and tell them it's okay to not know everything. And anyway, what do you do? What's your kind of strategy or whatever, the question is, but when you sit down to post, or maybe you post standing up, what is your kind of thoughts behind that?
Yeah, well, it always comes from something that's exciting, or something I feel I have to say. So last time it was about, the ones working on the front line, because just someone reaching out to me and asking question, and that it brings this idea, and I say this I have to share with other people. So that's more on the motivation and stuff like that. Then on the content, it's I have so many interesting content to share. It's more, my challenge is more like what I want to select in all this, and how I should package it so that it's interesting for other people, and it's the right timing. But yeah, coming back to what you said, I started also, to connect to more students, more junior engineers or junior medical sales, because at the end of the day, if tomorrow I'm leaving the medical device industry, so what is left with all that knowledge, that I've built? What is left with all that expertise? It goes nowhere. So why should I hold this for myself? I mean, if tomorrow I'm not there for any reason, then it's for nothing. So I started to connect to younger people, to, it's the future. So if you believe in what you say, if you really believe that the technology, emerging technology, will help physicians better treat patients and more patients, then you have to invest in the future. And the future are people that are right now in the industry, and also people that are entering this industry. And
that's right.
That's one thing that pops into my mind, because you talked about that, and it's also it's you said it's counterintuitive, because you say, hey, when I was young, nobody reached out to me and told me all those things, and they should go the hard way and try to get all this experience by themselves. But no, actually not. That's not empowering anybody. It's not useful, and it's a waste. You have knowledge, you have experience, you have something to say. Go for it,
Go for it, say it. I agree, but I would push back on one thing you just said. I've actually been blessed with mentors and coaches for a large part of my life, whether it was athletics and soccer, some of those coaches that just, got the most out of me, or a mentor that I had when I started in this industry, right? Scott, Tracy, right? Some of these people who just poured so much into me. And sure, we worked together. So it was a relationship that if they build me up, then I could be valuable for them. And that's good ultimately. But I feel like I have to pay this forward. I feel like to your point, it's a waste if you don't. And ultimately, what is your legacy going to be? Well, we're still working on that. You know, you and I are still young, still in our prime. We've got experience, but we've also got a story to tell. And so I think it's super fun, and it's been an interesting experiment, for lack of a better word, over the last 6 months. And I'm excited for the next 3 months, 6 months after that, and just to build. Let me ask you this. Do you need to be able to quantify something in order to know that it's valuable?
Well, I'm someone who works more from the gut feeling, so I would say no. Just I mean, well, in the engineering process, and when you want to reach a performance, then you have to quantify stuff to verify that you will land where you want it to be for the product requirements or customer needs or whatever. But for the rest, it's not, there is no science behind that. Nobody's going to be able to quantify anything. Any metrics will be irrelevant. So just if you feel like it, then it's fulfilling for you, and you should do it. And then it works or it doesn't work, and then you adjust, and it's okay if it doesn't work. I mean, you will find something else. You will pivot 15 degrees to the left or to the right, like Matthew Rescott is saying, and you will find something else. You need to move forward. You need to go to the next step.
It's inspiring, and I agree. And I ask that, it's kind of I wouldn't say a loaded question, but it's a question that I'm asking myself. Like, I mean, what's the ROI on all this? But as a sales guy, I'm wired to have a quota, and I do have a quota, right? I'm responsible in a small part. I have a big team and a lot of great people that I work with. We are responsible for a number at the end of the day, right? And to measure the impact, right, of that number, when you don't own the day-to-day, right, the ground level, to your point. I mean, I was a sales rep for a long time, and I lived and died by that measure. And so it's been really interesting, I think, for the last 6 months while I am tied to the number, the quarterly reports and all those things are super important for me. I'm playing the long game here, right? I'm trying to change people's perceptions and to help in a small way with our brand. And so that's one of the things that you and I messaged about. Can we talk about that? I mean, it's just such an intangible, but it matters.
Yeah, no, I mean, I will adjust a little bit what I said. I think both you and I are on the beginning of this journey. So at the beginning, for me, it's not clear enough, to put a metric, to put objectives, and to see what's the ROI. I'm sure that in 12 years, you will be able to figure out what's the ROI, because you will have, I don't know, a podcast with that many people listening and staying for at least 25 minutes. I don't know. So you will have your own metrics at some point during this journey. But coming back to the brand, I see a lot of discussions on LinkedIn, and I agree with all those guys that there have been a lot of conventional marketing, in this medical device space, and with the pandemic situation and the shift to digital, it's not that efficient. All this conventional marketing with, my product as this screw of 5mm, or this device of this size, and that's the service we provide, and I think this kind of stuff that you do that shine a light differently on a brand, it's for me it's very efficient, because it's unedited, is raw, it comes from the heart, and so you can relate to that. If it's whenever it's conventional marketing, it's sometimes hard to relate to the message, unless it's something very brand new, like the My Intuitive app on the digital space. That's amazing, and that you have this once in a time, and for the rest, everybody knows that there are spinal fusion implants and stuff like that, and when you go back to what you do, I would say for me it brought me a much different perspective on the Medtronic brand. So I've been there for 20 years, and Medtronic, I've been alongside Medtronic for 20 years. I know them pretty well from a very distant perspective, but as a big company selling products and stuff like that, and having people share different stories where you can relate to, brings you a different perspective, because the brand is not only the product, it's also the people. And what I like that is the culture, the culture you have in the company, and through this kind of experience, you share a little bit of the culture of the company, and that's the hardest thing to understand. What's the culture of the company through conventional marketing, and you only understand the true culture of the company if you enter into the company, but then it's too late if it's not the right one. So
well said. I'm humbled, honestly. I'm humbled that I've had any sort of even slight impact on such a global brand such as Medtronic, but that's exactly what I'm trying to do. Just telling my story, and if my story happens to resonate with you or with anyone in a positive way, and look, when you get to a certain point, there's a lot of people that are tired of seeing my face on their feeds than LinkedIn. I get it. I understand that that's kind of part of it, and I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. That's okay too. I don't have to be, right? I'm here and I'm available, and I want to connect with people like yourself, with competitive reps, competitive surgeons, right? We've got so much that's happening at such a rapid pace that I want to capture it, and want to share it, and I want to share it with more people and bring more people in. And that's kind of the rub. And I'm just grateful, Lucien, that we had some time to connect live and from France to Texas, where there is a Paris, Texas. I'm sure you're aware, but if you're not, there is a Paris, Texas.
You crazy Americans stealing our own country's names on our town's names, right?
And it's a small town, but it's
every time I go to the US, there is this city that's a French city. What's this doing here?
Yeah. The best is my brother lives in Versailles, Kentucky, and we say Versailles because it's clearly Versailles, but in Kentucky it's been Americanized to call it Versailles. And it's just kind of a fun wrinkle to what you're saying. Anything else? Any questions? I don't want to take too much of your time. I know we're at the top of the hour. We covered a lot. Is there anything else that is worth talking about, or comments or questions?
Yeah, I think we didn't talk about traveling, right?
Episode 3, right? Traveling. What does traveling mean to you in a simplistic view of it? What is it provided for you that you use today?
So I think it comes back to 2 basic things. The first one is get away from your everyday life. So cut everything that is your routine constraint, the pressure of the society you live in, all the conventions, all that is, putting you under pressure to do stuff in a certain way and in a certain timeline. So just get away from this. So that will open you up to anything that is possible. And the second one is connect to people, because at the end you can travel 40, 100 countries, and you can see marvelous landscapes, and you can have great activities, and you can try delicious food, and you can do whatever you want. But when you come back and years are passing, and the only thing, the first thing you remember, because you remember all that thing also, but the first thing you remember is the people you met and what you learn from the connection. So that's I think that's the 2 things from traveling. And when you think about that, you can travel not that far to get that.
Right.
If you clearly cut yourself from all the ties of the everyday life and truly connect to people, you can do it right next door.
Absolutely. And that's the mindset of what I've gained as well from traveling. It's perspective on the world and on myself. I've talked about that a couple different forums. But that perspective is so important, and you do need to remove yourself from the comfort zone that surrounds you, from the familiar, right? And I've mentioned this before, but I mean, I remember vividly, it was in Barcelona, and I was looking around. It's just this beautiful place, and I was homesick and depressed, and I could not enjoy it because it was at the tail end of our trip. And I just remember that I started pouring into journaling. I had been journaling this whole time. Maybe one day I'll write a book, because it was just such a wonderful experience, right? For three Texans to travel. One of our best friends planned it and then couldn't go right at the jump, but met us later. And, two of my best friends, and we saw the world, and it was just so great. And I still draw from that trip. And I'm super jealous that you got to take two of them at different stages of your life, because I'm sure they represent different things for you.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's different stages of life and different approaches to the same travel. But yeah, it opens up a lot of possibilities, because when you're in at school, then the best place to go is this place. Then you finish your school, and the best company is this one. And then once you are in the company, then the best career path is this one. And then if you don't pay attention, then you just follow a path that has been drawn for
Right.
you, for yourself, but maybe it's not the one that you really chose, right? And
That's right.
and traveling brings you this perspective to know that, yeah, well, we live in a big world first, and there are that many people, and they have very different stories, very different trajectories in life. They've experienced very different stuff, and
Right.
we are all the same at the end. I mean, there are much more similarities between people, and than there are differences. So you can
Right.
relate to the stories and say, hey, maybe I could choose, get inspired by those different paths, and make the right
Absolutely.
choice for me.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned Asia, and I've been to China, Japan, Southeast Asia. Just incredible culture, rich people, right? And just so different than how the Western world, and how certainly in America we are and we live. And here's the crazy stat. You mentioned it's a big world. I think I've been to 40 countries. I think I need to count, and that's like less than 10% of the world, right? Which is just staggering and eye-opening. And I dream of a day. I know today, with what's going on in the world economy, with the pandemic and other things, and the borders, or it's not as easy right now to travel as it was when you and I did. But I hope that soon I can bring my children to see
Yeah.
some of the rich cultures. Africa, you mentioned. I went on a medical mission trip just a few years ago, and that was another eye-opening experience, right? To just see how they live, and the smiles on those faces of kids that have nothing. It, and I didn't mean to get. I'm not trying to preach, but when I come and I see my kids, who I work hard to provide a lot for them, uh, you just think back to those children, and other people maybe in different places that are underprivileged, and that have a tough, right, road ahead. And it just gives perspective, right? Still today, I draw from it. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the third gap year will be with my children. So at some
mm,
point, sometime,
maybe we'll
it's
do it together.
yeah. Yeah, and I mean, meeting people also, because when you travel, you meet local people, but you also meet
Yes.
travelers, and those travelers have also oftentimes rich experiences to share, and that's how I discuss with Israeli people, and yeah, the Israeli situation is very complex, and it's very
Yes.
difficult to understand from where you are if you just read the newspaper and stuff like that. And I will not get into the details, but just relating to this guy and discussing, he was just finishing his military year,
Right.
in Israel, and we get to talk, and he get to explain how he feels with the situation, and what his point of view. And this is the kind of stuff you don't get if you don't if you don't connect with someone, and that's a lot of things to learn and to experience.
Yeah, it's absolutely. And Israelis is a great, and I draw from my time spending with quite a bit of Israelis. We met them in Fiji. There were some in Thailand, and the spirit that they had, because they all do have to serve in the military, women too, and they know that tomorrow's not promised, and so that's how they live their lives, and it's just such a beautiful way to live. And so when I met them, I was just drawn to that, right? And came to, appreciate things about their way and their culture. And I'm Lebanese, right? American, just completely different, right? And this was 2006 when I was traveling. So the Lebanese and Israelis were at war, and it was just we were in a different part of the world, coming together and connecting and learning about one another. And I think that bridge, and kind of to your point, like just the perspective and the empathy that you gain from, shared experiences and just conversations, just like you and I today, Lucien, like this has been so rewarding for me to learn about your path and the lens of an engineer for robotics, but also just through other things such as social media and digital transformations and branding and connections, right? We're all connected, and it's just fun. So I'm grateful for this time, and I appreciate you taking it.
Thank you. I mean, that was our first conversation, and I really enjoyed it, man.
Me too, man. And it won't be the last. If people wanted to find more about Lucien Blondel, where would they go? Where would you tell them to find?
They go to LinkedIn, to my profile, and just click follow. I accept also connection requests, anybody in a medical device, and I'm very focused on sharing information on robotics, imaging, AI. So as long as you're interested in those fields, feel free to follow, feel free to connect, and send me a message, and we'll go from there, and we'll see where we'll end.
Fantastic. Well, Lucien, thank you so much for joining the Sultans of Sales podcast, the Sultans of Engineering. And I'm grateful for the time again, and look forward to seeing more of your content on LinkedIn. I draw a lot from it, and I educate myself. This morning's was fantastic about all the French innovation and technology companies that are out there today from France. So I encourage anyone listening to this when it airs to go to Lucien Blondel's page and read that post about all the innovation that's happening in your country. It's exciting.
Yeah, thanks. I'll do videos of that. Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Have a good rest of your day,
right,
sir. I'm going to stop this recording. Thank you guys for joining. We'll see you next week.